When Eilat Mazar realized she discovered an ancient structure near Jerusalem, she turned to the Bible to help explain what she found.
And she learned that this new discovery supports the biblical accounts of King David and his son Solomon.
The chamber had remained sealed beneath layers of sand and stone, untouched for what seemed like eternity. When the team of scientists finally pried open the entrance, the world watched in awe as the door gave way to a cavern that had lain dormant for nearly 5 millennia. This was no ordinary archaeological discovery. It was the tomb believed to belong to King Solomon, one of the most enigmatic figures in human history. The sheer age of the site alone was enough to stun experts, but what they encountered inside surpassed even the most ambitious expectations. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The air that rushed out of the sealed vault was heavy, thick with the scent of time itself, as if it carried the whispers of thousands of years. The explorers were cautious, stepping into a darkness broken only by the glow of their lights. At first glance, the interior of the tomb radiated an aura of extraordinary preservation. Walls carved with intricate symbols stretched in every direction, telling stories that had never before been seen. The carvings seemed to combine artistry with cryptic messages, capturing the essence of a kingdom that had been described for centuries but never fully proven by physical evidence. What lay in the center of the chamber captivated everyone. A colossal stone sarcophagus, sealed and adorned with engravings of lions, trees, and celestial symbols, seemed to guard the remains of the legendary king. Around it were treasures so vast that even seasoned archaeologists paused in disbelief. Gold artifacts gleamed as though they had been crafted yesterday. Vessels of silver lined with gemstones, weapons embedded with lapis lazuli, and ornate crowns hinted at the wealth and influence Solomon wielded in his time. The tomb was not simply a burial site. It was a treasury, a reflection of the might of a ruler remembered for wisdom and opulence. As the scientists examined further, they uncovered scrolls preserved in cases of cedarwood and ivory. These scrolls appeared to contain writings unknown to modern scholarship, possibly even texts attributed directly to Solomon himself. The delicate parchment resisted decay as though protected by a purpose greater than chance. Linguists marveled at the script, a blend of known Semitic languages with curious deviations that suggested a forgotten dialect. If deciphered, these writings might illuminate not only the wisdom of the king, but also provide insight into the beliefs, politics, and philosophies of an age long obscured by myth and fragmented history. Beyond the artifacts, the tomb contained chambers filled with items that carried symbolic significance. One room displayed what appeared to be models of structures, some resembling the descriptions of the famed Temple of Solomon. Another contained intricate musical instruments carved from exotic woods and inlaid with gold, their design more advanced than anything thought possible for the period. The level of craftsmanship suggested a civilization that pushed the boundaries of technology and artistry far ahead of its time. These discoveries hinted that Solomon's reign may have been not only powerful but also deeply innovative. The murals on the walls intensified the sense of wonder. Scenes of court life, battles, rituals, and processions told vivid stories. They depicted Solomon presiding over a kingdom that stretched beyond the borders described in scripture, suggesting alliances and trade routes spanning continents. Some images revealed ships laden with treasures, sailing toward lands yet to be identified. Others showed interactions with figures who appeared foreign, their attire and physical features distinct, suggesting a global reach far greater than historians had dared to imagine. These murals alone could rewrite the understanding of ancient diplomacy and cultural exchange. In the innermost sanctum, where the sarcophagus rested, the scientists found an object that puzzled them more than any other. It was a crystalline structure encased in a golden frame, radiating a faint glow despite the absence of any light source. Its origin was impossible to determine immediately, but its placement suggested reverence and importance. Some speculated it could have been a sacred relic, perhaps an object tied to the legends of Solomon's wisdom, or even the stories of supernatural power that surrounded his name. Whether it was symbolic or functional remained uncertain, but its presence alone ignited imaginations across the world. The implications of the discovery grew deeper as examinations continued. The tomb's architecture employed techniques that defied simple explanation. Gigantic stone blocks had been fitted with a precision that rivaled or even exceeded later civilizations, raising questions about how such construction was achieved in an age without advanced machinery. Air shafts, hidden passageways, and complex locking mechanisms showed an understanding of engineering that felt far ahead of its era. The sheer sophistication suggested that the Kingdom of Solomon might have harnessed knowledge and skills passed down from sources yet unknown. Even more astonishing was the condition of the sarcophagus itself. Carved from a single massive slab of stone, it bore inscriptions that intertwined religious invocations with astronomical references. Stars, planets, and constellations etched into the lid indicated that the builders held a keen awareness of celestial patterns. This alignment raised the possibility that Solomon's people had a deeper grasp of astronomy and its influence on human affairs than previously imagined. It reinforced the legend of a ruler whose wisdom spanned both earthly and cosmic domains. The team debated the ethics of unsealing the sarcophagus. The moment they did so, they crossed a threshold of history that could never be reversed. When the lid was finally shifted, the sight inside brought the entire chamber to silence. The remains, remarkably intact, lay adorned in garments woven with threads of gold. A crown rested upon the skull, encrusted with precious stones that still sparkled with brilliance. Amulets and seals surrounded the body, each symbolizing authority, protection, and divine favor. It was not merely a burial, it was a statement, an eternal proclamation of identity that defied the erosion of time. Perhaps the most extraordinary find accompanying the body was a set of tablets positioned at the side of the sarcophagus. Unlike the scrolls, these were etched into stone with remarkable precision. They appeared to contain proverbs, decrees, and philosophical musings, many of which echoed the legendary sayings attributed to Solomon. For centuries, stories of his wisdom had been passed down through oral and written tradition. But here were tangible, original sources that connected directly to him. The weight of authenticity was undeniable, and with it came the promise of reshaping the way humanity understood morality, leadership, and justice in the ancient world. The energy surrounding the tomb was palpable. Scientists, historians, theologians, and even engineers all converged on the site, each recognizing the magnitude of what had been uncovered. The discovery was not just about the past, it had the potential to redefine the present. It challenged long-held assumptions about the reach of ancient civilizations, the depth of their knowledge, and the validity of the legends entwined with their rulers. It revealed that the line between myth and reality was far thinner than anyone had suspected. As news spread, the significance of the find resonated across cultures and nations. For many, Solomon had been a figure of spiritual reverence, while for others he represented an era of prosperity and unity. Now, tangible proof of his existence and his reign stood before the world. This was not an abstract narrative preserved in ancient texts. It was a material reality, uncovered and undeniable. The treasures, the writings, and the very bones of the king spoke with a voice that had been silent for 5,000 years. What this unsealing revealed went beyond material wealth. It unveiled the ingenuity, resilience, and vision of a people who thrived in a world far more interconnected than previously believed. It demonstrated that ancient civilizations were not isolated pockets of human effort, but part of a vast dynamic network of exchange, learning, and creativity. In that sense, the Tomb of Solomon served not only as a monument to one man, but as a testament to the heights humanity could achieve when guided by wisdom and ambition. Each artifact, each symbol carved into stone, carried with it layers of meaning that scholars would spend decades unraveling. Yet the immediate impact was clear. The legend of Solomon had stepped out of the realm of myth and into the reality of human history. The tomb's unsealing marked a turning point, not just for archaeology, but for the collective understanding of the ancient world. It reminded humanity that the past still holds secrets capable of reshaping the future, waiting patiently beneath the earth until the right moment arrives to be revealed. The discovery of the sealed chamber of King Solomon's tomb marked only the beginning of an unfolding story that continues to captivate scholars and the public alike. Once the initial shock of the find gave way to careful analysis, each corner of the site began to reveal details that enriched the larger picture of Solomon's era. The tomb was not merely a resting place, It was a carefully orchestrated archive designed to project his identity, his values, and his power across thousands of years. The deeper the team explored, the clearer it became that this site had been conceived not only as a memorial, but as a message deliberately intended for future generations. Another annex contained items clearly tied to science and study. Shelves of stone and wood supported containers filled with minerals, herbs, and exotic substances, many of which were sealed in glass-like vessels of remarkable clarity. The contents appeared to be part of a collection for research, an ancient library of natural knowledge. Alongside these were instruments that baffled the scientists who uncovered them. Devices resembling astrolabes, measuring rods engraved with notches that matched astronomical cycles, and delicate balances suggesting experiments with weights and measures. Such findings indicated that Solomon's court had cultivated an environment of discovery, one where inquiry into the natural and celestial world was encouraged. This painted a portrait of a ruler who was not simply wise in matters of judgment, but also deeply invested in understanding the mechanics of the universe. The artistic treasures were no less extraordinary. An entire chamber dedicated to art and craftsmanship showcased a stunning variety of sculptures, reliefs, and jewelry. What struck observers most was the range of styles present, some resembling the aesthetics of neighboring regions, others bearing wholly unique traits. Gold bracelets inlaid with turquoise echoed Egyptian motifs, while carved ivory panels suggested Assyrian influence. Yet many artifacts bore hallmarks of a distinct identity, patterns of interwoven vines, lions, and suns that scholars quickly began associating with a uniquely Solomonic style. This fusion of external and internal motifs suggested a cosmopolitan court where artisans from across the known world contributed their skills, leaving behind a cultural blend that transcended borders. Moving deeper, the explorers found a ritual chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The walls shimmered with fragments of crushed gemstones embedded into plaster, designed to catch and reflect torchlight in dazzling colors. In the center stood an altar of alabaster, polished smooth and carved with spiral motifs that spiraled upward as if to mimic the heavens. Around it were vessels still containing traces of oils, incense, and resins. The chemical analyses revealed ingredients that came from distant lands: frankincense from Arabia, myrrh from East Africa, and saffron from as far as Central Asia. This evidence suggested that Solomon's realm was connected to trade networks spanning continents, and that ritual practices incorporated elements from cultures across vast distances. The chamber, imbued with sacred purpose, hinted at a spiritual syncretism that transcended traditional boundaries of the time. One of the most puzzling discoveries was a massive bronze door, sealed within a side passage. Unlike the rest of the tomb, which bore an unmistakably ancient aura, this door seemed almost futuristic in its construction. It was perfectly fitted into its frame, with no visible hinges, and adorned with geometric designs that suggested both mathematical precision and symbolic meaning. When opened with the aid of modern tools, the chamber it concealed contained artifacts that defied conventional interpretation. A collection of crystalline objects, shaped into perfect spheres and pyramids, was arranged in deliberate patterns on stone pedestals. Their surfaces shimmered faintly under artificial light, and their purpose remained a mystery. Some speculated they were ceremonial, others believed they could have been used for observation of the heavens, while a few dared to suggest they might represent technologies that ancient civilizations mastered, but were later lost. The burial site also revealed something unexpected: carefully preserved garments woven from fibers that had resisted decay. The clothing was unlike anything previously recovered from the region. Robes dyed in deep purples and blues, interlaced with gold threads, testified to both wealth and artistry. Intricate embroidery depicted scenes of hunting, worship, and royal procession, capturing in thread what stone carvings and murals expressed elsewhere. These garments suggested that Solomon's image was carefully curated, that even in death he was to be remembered not only as a ruler, but as a figure of majesty embodying divine favor. For modern textile historians, the find offered priceless insight into the materials, dyes, and weaving techniques of an era that had previously left little physical evidence behind. Equally fascinating was the discovery of musical instruments in pristine condition. Harps, lyres, drums, and flutes, crafted with astonishing detail, lay arranged in a semicircle as though a performance were about to begin. Some instruments were inlaid with gems, others shaped from rare woods that hinted at long-distance trade. The symbolism of their placement suggested that music had held an essential role in Solomon's court, not only as entertainment, but as a medium for worship, storytelling, and perhaps even diplomacy. The instruments stood as testaments to the cultural richness of the era, and their survival provided tangible proof of traditions once thought forever lost. The tomb also revealed a library of sorts, not in scrolls alone, but in etched tablets that chronicled everything from agricultural practices to philosophical musings. Some tablets outlined irrigation techniques, crop rotations, and soil management strategies, showing a civilization deeply invested in sustaining its people. Others recorded medicinal recipes, herbal mixtures, healing techniques, and procedures for surgery that could reshape the understanding of ancient medicine. The philosophical writings were especially compelling, touching upon themes of justice, leadership, and morality. While some echoed teachings already familiar through sacred texts, others introduced wholly new perspectives, suggesting that Solomon's legacy as a thinker and sage extended beyond the boundaries of what had been preserved in tradition. The engineering marvels of the tomb's design captivated structural experts. Ventilation shafts had been carved to ensure airflow, preventing the buildup of moisture and preserving the integrity of the site. Hidden water channels redirected underground streams, ensuring stability. The precision of these constructions suggested advanced planning and execution far ahead of what had been assumed possible. Moreover, the placement of chambers aligned with astronomical events, such as solstices and equinoxes, reinforcing the impression that cosmic patterns guided the builders. Each alignment hinted at a worldview where earthly rule was inseparably linked with celestial order, a belief system that placed Solomon at the center of both temporal and cosmic harmony. Among the more personal items were objects of daily use that revealed glimpses of life beyond ceremony. Cups worn by handling, combs carved from bone, and even gaming pieces fashioned from ivory suggested a monarch who, despite his grandeur, partook in the ordinary rhythms of life. These objects humanized the legendary king, showing that beneath the myth stood a man who enjoyed leisure, valued hygiene, and appreciated the small comforts of existence. For modern audiences, such discoveries bridge the gap between history and humanity, making a figure from thousands of years ago feel tangible and relatable. The discovery of exotic animals' remains within the tomb added another layer of intrigue. Bones of peacocks, monkeys, and even elephants were found alongside the treasures, suggesting that these animals were either gifts from distant lands or part of Solomon's fabled menagerie. Their presence underscored the extent of his influence and the reach of his networks, as well as the importance of symbolism in associating kingship with dominion over the natural world. It also revealed a fascination with biodiversity, as if the presence of creatures from far-off lands emphasized the universality of his rule. The symbolic architecture of the tomb invited endless interpretation. Each chamber, each artifact seemed arranged with intention, creating a narrative that extended beyond the confines of stone. The outer layers represented worldly authority, with treasures and symbols of power. The inner sanctum represented wisdom, with scrolls, tablets, and instruments of learning. The central chamber embodied the divine connection, with relics that suggested cosmic alignment and sacred ritual. Taken together, the tomb was not simply a burial, it was a grand tapestry of ideas, a material manifesto of what it meant to be Solomon, king, sage, and servant of the divine. For theologians, the discovery invited profound reflection. The physical evidence lent weight to traditions that had long been debated, while simultaneously introducing new questions. The writings and artifacts suggested a ruler whose wisdom was not confined to religious thought, but extended into science, philosophy, and art. It showed a figure who embraced diversity, who drew from the knowledge and resources of many lands to create a kingdom greater than the sum of its parts. The tomb revealed Solomon not only as a man of faith, but as a universal figure whose influence transcended borders and epochs. The tomb's unsealing also raised questions about intentional secrecy. It was sealed with such precision, protected by elaborate mechanisms, that it seemed designed not to be found until a distant future. Some scholars speculated that Solomon or his successors intended to preserve his legacy for a time when humanity would be ready to receive it. This interpretation suggested a foresight that defied conventional historical explanation, as if the tomb itself was a time capsule prepared for revelation at a specific moment in history. The idea that knowledge could be deliberately hidden for millennia added an aura of mystery to the discovery. The sense of awe deepened as researchers realized how much remained to be studied. Each artifact required analysis. Each inscription needed translation. Each chamber demanded interpretation. The tomb was not a single revelation, but a vast repository of wisdom, waiting patiently to unfold layer by layer. It was a discovery that would not simply occupy scholars for decades, but could potentially alter the trajectory of human understanding for centuries to come. The treasures were extraordinary, but the knowledge contained within was priceless, capable of reshaping how humanity viewed its past and its possibilities. The unsealing of King Solomon's tomb was not merely an archaeological milestone, it was a reminder of the enduring power of human memory and ambition. Across 5,000 years, the story of a king had survived in legend, awaiting the moment when stone doors would open and truth would step forth. The implications stretched beyond the boundaries of history and into the realms of philosophy, spirituality, and identity. It reminded the world that the past is never truly lost, only waiting to be uncovered, and that within its depths lie treasures that can illuminate the path forward. The excavation team quickly realized that what they had uncovered was not just a tomb, but an entire complex built with extraordinary foresight. Unlike other burial sites from antiquity, this one seemed to be constructed with the intention of safeguarding a philosophy, a worldview, and a legacy that went far beyond the individual who was laid to rest. Every chamber revealed something new, each detail adding to the astonishing complexity of Solomon's world. The site seemed alive with purpose, as though it had been designed not just for burial, but as a vessel to carry wisdom across millennia. What struck many observers most was the way the tomb's structure embraced mathematics and geometry. The corridors and chambers were aligned with remarkable precision, their dimensions echoing ratios and proportions later celebrated by architects of Greece and Rome. It was as though the builders had encoded mathematical harmony into stone itself, reflecting a philosophy where numbers and proportions expressed universal truths. The discovery of measuring rods, compasses, and engraved geometric diagrams reinforced the impression that mathematics held spiritual as well as practical significance in Solomon's court. This suggested a kingdom where architecture was more than construction. It was a physical manifestation of cosmic order. Another remarkable feature of the site was its system of hidden chambers, many of which were discovered only after extensive scanning and excavation. These chambers appeared to serve as repositories for knowledge, with collections of tablets arranged in careful sequences, almost like shelves in a library. Some of these contained astronomical observations, records of lunar phases, solar eclipses, and star movements tracked over centuries. Others documented cycles of seasons and predictions of agricultural yields. Taken together, they painted a picture of a culture deeply invested in understanding patterns, cycles, and cosmic rhythms. For modern scholars, these records are invaluable, offering a glimpse into an ancient scientific tradition that rivaled later civilizations. Among the most haunting discoveries were objects tied to medicine. Carved ivory cases contained scalpels and other surgical instruments crafted with surprising refinement. Alongside them were records of treatments for ailments, ranging from herbal remedies to procedures that suggested a rudimentary knowledge of surgery and anatomy. One tablet described methods for reducing fever, another detailed mixtures used for easing childbirth. Even instructions for stitching wounds and preventing infection were present. Such revelations suggested that Solomon's court valued healing as much as law and philosophy, and that medical knowledge had been elevated to a respected discipline. This focus on medicine not only underscores the sophistication of the kingdom, but also shows how deeply they sought to alleviate suffering and extend life. Equally compelling was the evidence of trade networks woven into the tomb's treasures. Artifacts originating from regions thousands of miles apart were found side by side. Amber from the Baltic, jade from Central Asia, spices from India, and ostrich eggs from Africa all lay preserved within the chambers. These items demonstrated that Solomon's kingdom sat at the heart of a vast network of exchange that connected continents. Such trade would have required diplomacy, navigation, and mutual trust, revealing a global reach unparalleled for the time. The tomb thus offered proof of a world far more interconnected than many historians had imagined, a world where goods, ideas, and culture flowed across enormous distances. One chamber dedicated entirely to weaponry displayed a dazzling array of arms, but these were unlike the crude tools of war often associated with antiquity. Swords, spears, and shields were crafted with elegance, balanced perfectly, and decorated with intricate inscriptions. Some weapons were ceremonial, clearly designed to project power and authority rather than serve in battle. Others bore marks of use, hinting at campaigns or ceremonial duels. What made this collection fascinating was the emphasis on artistry as much as utility. Warfare in Solomon's era appeared not only as an assertion of dominance, but as a statement of cultural sophistication. Perhaps the most surprising discoveries came from the botanical remains preserved in sealed jars. Seeds, dried leaves, and resins were meticulously cataloged and stored. Analysis revealed species that had vanished from the region centuries ago, including plants believed to have medicinal or ritual significance. Among them were specimens thought extinct, now resurrected in the form of seeds capable of germination. The implications were staggering. A botanical archive spanning millennia, preserved in the resting place of a king, now offering the possibility of reviving flora long lost to history. The tomb thus bridged not only the gap between past and present, but between ancient and modern ecosystems. The artistry of storytelling also emerged in the discovery of carved panels depicting allegories and parables. Unlike murals that recorded literal events, these works conveyed abstract moral lessons through images. One panel showed a lion and a lamb drinking from the same stream. Another depicted a circle of men from different lands sharing a meal under a single tree. These images seemed to symbolize harmony, peace, and unity, echoing themes associated with Solomon's wisdom. They suggested that the king's influence was not only political, but moral, shaping values that transcended time and culture. Another striking aspect was the presence of miniature models representing entire cities. Crafted with extraordinary detail, these models depicted buildings, streets, walls, and marketplaces in miniature scale. Some resembled descriptions of ancient Jerusalem, while others hinted at cities beyond the kingdom's known borders. The precision of these models was astonishing, and scholars speculated they may have been used for planning, strategy, or teaching. They served as reminders that architecture and urban planning were critical components of governance, and that Solomon's reign was deeply concerned with order, design, and prosperity. In one hidden alcove, researchers uncovered an array of artifacts devoted to the study of time. Sundials, water clocks, and other devices suggested a sophisticated understanding of measuring and recording hours, days, and seasons. Some were marked with notations indicating corrections and improvements, as though the court had experimented with accuracy over centuries. This attention to time revealed a society acutely aware of order, rhythm, and the passage of life. It also underscored the importance of aligning human activity with cosmic cycles, reinforcing themes already embedded in the tomb's architecture and inscriptions. Personal items belonging to the king himself painted an even richer portrait. Rings set with gemstones bore inscriptions that seemed to serve both decorative and symbolic functions. One signet ring carried markings that matched seals found on administrative tablets, suggesting Solomon himself may have used it to authorize decrees. Small containers of perfumed oils, combs carved from ivory, and amulets inscribed with protective symbols revealed the personal rituals of a man whose image had been immortalized through legend. These items gave humanity to the figure often depicted as larger than life, bridging the gap between king and man. An astonishing discovery was the presence of artifacts that appeared to function as teaching tools. Carved boards resembling early abacuses, along with geometric puzzles and pattern blocks, hinted at a tradition of formal education in the royal court. These objects suggested that Solomon's legacy included not only ruling wisely, but ensuring that knowledge was transmitted to others. Education was not confined to elite scribes. It appeared embedded in the culture of governance and spirituality. This emphasis on learning as an institution marked the kingdom as unusually progressive for its time. The acoustics of the tomb itself revealed another layer of design. Sound carried through the chambers in ways that seemed deliberately engineered. In the ritual room, even a whisper amplified to fill the entire space, suggesting that rituals conducted there would have had an overwhelming auditory impact. This mastery of acoustics indicated a deep understanding of architecture, not only as a visual art, but as a sensory experience. It reinforced the idea that the tomb was constructed to evoke awe, reverence, and emotional transformation in those who entered. One chamber, circular and domed, presented a ceiling painted with an intricate map of the heavens. Stars, constellations, and planetary paths were illustrated with remarkable accuracy, some aligning with modern astronomical calculations. This map was not static. It appeared to show the sky as it would have looked during a specific epoch. Whether this was meant to mark the time of Solomon's reign or his burial remains uncertain, but the implication was clear. The king was positioned in alignment with the cosmos, his rule woven into the very fabric of the universe. Perhaps the most moving discovery was a set of letters, carefully sealed in containers of clay. These were personal correspondences, written in a hand believed to belong to Solomon himself. They addressed family members, advisors, and even foreign rulers. The tone of these letters varied. Some conveyed affection and warmth, others carried instructions, and still others expressed reflections on mortality and the fleeting nature of power. These documents offered an intimate glimpse into the human side of the legendary king, showing him not only as a sovereign but as a father, a husband, and a man burdened by the weight of leadership. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on King Solomon's tomb unsealing and possible discoveries inside? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.